that again, we'll be going through the mock draft later in the show, my mock draft for the top 10. In my second down segment, because I do want to get into this, because I've been hearing it a lot on the sports talk networks, and hopefully you guys had a chance to watch the Last Dance, the first 2 episodes of the Michael Jordan documentary for his last championship. If you haven't watched it, make sure you skip this segment, because there will be, I will be ruining, the episodes as far as providing you that information. So make sure you skip this episode and go to third down segment from my mock draft. But the Last Dance, Michael Jordan documentary on ESPN. Luckily, I have ESPN Plus. I wasn't able to watch it when it came out the first day, but I was able to watch it after the fact, obviously streaming it on ESPN Plus, which I still love ESPN Plus. If you guys been listening to me last year, I always talk about ESPN Plus and the UFC fights. I think ESPN Plus is well worth the $5. So ESPN, send me a check, Anyways, The Last Dance. So I was able to watch this with my brother, and there were a lot of things that I didn't know about Michael Jordan or the Bulls. Obviously, not obviously, but I was born in the 1990s, so 1990, and I was a kid when Michael Jordan was playing. I knew of him because my dad didn't like him because he won too much. So I knew Michael Jordan. I was a Bulls fan as a kid because everybody was a Michael Jordan fan. So you were a Bulls fan. And man, this thing, the main takeaway for me was Scottie Pippen being underpaid. You're talking about a player, if you look back now, he's one of the top 50 players to ever play the game. They had a stat in there saying that he was the 122nd highest paid player in the NBA during that last season where they won that 6th championship. And he was the 6th highest paid player on the Bulls. But he was also ranked to number 1 or 2 in almost all the statistical categories on the Bulls. So he was outperforming his contract by miles. And it's hard to blame the Bulls for, taking that route and, underpaying him. But according to the owner, I believe, who was on the documentary, Scottie Pippen wanted a long-term contract. I believe the contract was 7 years, $18 million. Scottie Pippen in the documentary even stated that he was looking for something. He wanted to have that security, that 7 years, $18 million. So he took the contract, even after the owner stated that he said, he wouldn't sign the contract because, 7 years is a lot of time. A lot of things could change in 7 years. Again, Scottie Pippen was taking the safe route. And, again, I can't blame either side, because if Scottie Pippen outperformed his contract, you would think that the organization that won 5 championships would reward him, would, not rip the contract up, but, try to find a way to get him more money. And unfortunately, by the time, after they won their 5th championship, it seemed like Scottie Pippen and the Bulls' relationship was already fractured. Speaking of fractures, Scottie Pippen decided not to have his surgery on his ankle, I believe, during the offseason. He decided to have it at the beginning of the season, so he ended up missing a lot of time that season where the Bulls won that 6th championship. And again, this is only the first 2 episodes, so I thought the first 2 episodes were going to have everything, but I didn't know it was a 10-part series, so I'm excited to watch the other ones that are coming up. A couple of quotes that caught my eye. One of them, which was funny, when Jordan first got into when Jordan first got into the league, he was playing against the Celtics, who was obviously one of the best teams at that time. It was in his 2nd year, and this was after he had broke his foot. So when he came back, the Bulls were putting him on minutes restriction, 7 minutes at first. After the 7 minutes was up, 1 second after the 7 minutes was up, they're right at the 7-minute mark, they're taking him out, and the GM owner were telling the coaches, hey, if he plays past this time restriction, you're getting fired. So I believe it was the Celtics game where he was on a 14-minute time restriction, a playing restriction. And Michael Jordan, I believe he dropped 40 or 50 points on Larry Bird and the Celtics. The funny quote from that was Larry Bird, and I'm sure some of you have heard this already. He stated that that wasn't Michael Jordan. That was God disguised as Michael Jordan. I don't know if there's a better compliment than that, especially from a Hall of Famer and a top 50 player of all time as well, Larry Bird. I mean, that obviously he's not saying that he is God. It's a figure. It's a comment to give the highest respect to Michael Jordan, obviously. So that was pretty funny. Michael Jordan playing 3 years at UNC. Again, I didn't know that he played 3 years in UNC. I know you went to UNC for whatever reason. I thought he was one and done, but he played 3 years at UNC, won the national championship with James Worthy his freshman year, and he was planning on going back to UNC for a fourth year until the coach told him, hey, it's time for you to go to the NBA and go ahead and make this money. And the documentary is well put together. I mean, there's times in the documentary where they jump timeline and they'll show you, when they jump, but they start here in the season where they're about to win 6 and they'll go back to Michael Jordan's childhood. They'll go back to that season where they're about to win 6 championships, and then they'll go back to Michael Jordan's first year, Michael Jordan in college. But the director did a great job in kind of like telling the whole story and tying everything together, so you got the full picture of what you were watching and the whole Michael Jordan experience. One thing that was a little confusing to me was in that last season, before they won the 6th championship, before that season even got started, Phil Jackson had an issue with the GM. There was some type of tension between the GM and Phil Jackson, and before the season started, the GM told Phil Jackson that it was going to be his last year. And it's weird that you just win a championship, you're about to go for 6, and before you do that, the GM tells you that it's your last year. I mean, that's a great way to start a season. That's a great way to get to the 6th championship by your GM already telling the coach that it's going to be his last year with the team that he just won 2 straight with. And 5 total, or well, not 5. He won 2 straight with. He was going for a 3rd. And Michael Jordan, his loyalty to Phil Jackson was incredible. I mean, Michael Jordan stated if Phil Jackson wasn't coaching, he wasn't going to play with the Bulls. So, again, the first 2 episodes of The Last Dance, there's a lot of stuff going on. I tried to take notes while I was watching it. It was just, my eyes were glued to the TV. So if you guys haven't had a chance to watch that, make sure you guys find the scheduling to see when it'll be on ESPN next. Or if you have ESPN Plus, you could stream it it's not for free, but you could stream it on there on demand. And I would definitely recommend it because it is a great watch. And it's only 2 episodes. Again, there's 8 more to go. And I wish that they were out already because I would have binged watched it. And it would have been done before this podcast was even made. Thanks for stopping by. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button for more fire sports takes. And for those of you who are on the go, make sure you subscribe to our full show, which airs every Thursday on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and a bunch more. Until then, I'm chucking it up, and I'll see you guys next time.